Hi YouTube, in this video I'm just going to show you how to build a pond like this step by step. But first I'd just like to say that this is the best way to get wildlife into your garden. Since I built this pond we've had newts and frogs and all kinds of pond insects, and it's been really brilliant, and we get hedgehogs visiting it to drink from it. Birds also come and drink from it, and also it's really quite a cheap thing to build and doesn't actually take that much time to do, really. Okay, here's step one. So basically dig a hole, but try and do it on two levels, so you have a shallow section and a deep section. This is important for amphibians because, for example, common toads prefer to lay their spawn strings in deep water, whereas common frogs prefer to lay their spawn clumps in shallow water. And the shallow section also tends to be warmed by the sun more easily, so it's a warmer area generally. Any soil that you remove could be boxed up in tubs like I've done in this photo, or put out on a big sheet, and you can use it for making like a rockery or something somewhere else in your garden. Be sure to remove any sharp rocks or anything from this hole and smooth down the soil as much as you can. Next, line the hole with some fleece. You can buy this special pond fleece material that won't rot away. It's really nice and soft, and it just is really good for protecting the pond liner later on. Next, if you just cover the fleece layer with a layer of soft sand, try and use soft sand rather than sharp sand, and again this will protect the pond liner. Bear in mind that buying large amounts of sand is quite often a cheap way of doing it, rather than buying lots of small bags of sand from a garden centre. Okay, next is the pond liner. This is the bit where it is important to buy a really good quality pond liner. It needs to be at least 1.5 millimeters thick. I think this is 2 mil thick, and also it should be UV resistant. This way you're not going to get any kind of tears or anything in it later on, and it's not going to just disintegrate if the sun hits it. It gives you good peace of mind just to know that it's going to last for a long time once you've done it. Okay, next is to start filling it with water. You can see the hose going down to it here. When you do this, all of the folds and things that are in the pond liner actually get sucked into the edges, and it becomes much kind of neater than it is now. So don't worry about any creases that you have in the pond liner. While your pond is filling up with water, because this can take quite a long time, you can go around the edge with a pair of scissors and cut a neater kind of oval shape. Just make sure that you leave enough of a rim around the edge for any suction that the water might cause, kind of pulling the liner in a little bit. Okay, with the pond fuller, hopefully you can all see now that the creases have kind of been squashed down by the weight of the water, and it's looking much neater inside underneath the actual water. Now I'm quite lucky in my garden because when I dig holes I get lots of big limestone rocks underneath. So you can see that pile of rocks in the foreground there are all the rocks that came out when I was digging this hole. So I was able to use those to basically make this kind of edge around the pond. This is important for insects and other creatures, little frogs and things, to hide in. Okay, so in this photo you can see how I've carried on with the rocks. So what I do is use some soil to go round over the rim of pond liner first to weight it down, and then put the rocks on top of that. So yeah, all the way around, and also this weights down the rim of the pond liner and just keeps it all nice and firm and in position. Okay, next I added a load of little plants into the soil around in the rockery around the edge of the pond, and a lot of these are just alpine plants that you would normally buy for rockeries. This is kind of optional though. You don't have to buy any plants, and you can just leave it and let nature, plants will always find a way to get into all these little gaps and things anyway. Okay, next I decided to add some paving slabs at the front here. This is just somewhere that I can kind of stand when I'm kind of pond dipping, or looking into the pond generally. Again, this is optional, you don't have to put these on. but I thought it would be a nice little extra feature. Okay, what plants you decide to put in the pond is completely up to you, and you don't have to do it all in one go. You could do it in stages, but I put some taller irises at the back, and you could put any kind of like reeds and that kind of thing, just to give a bit of height. And then you can do things like water lilies in the middle. You can get pink ones and white ones, and the flowers come up at certain times of the year, and that can look really nice. You can have a few sort of bigger, maybe floating plants. Um, and then pond weed is especially important because there are certain species which kind of newts lay their eggs in and that sort of thing. So try and get some like Alodia or something like that to go in for newts. Try and avoid adding duckweed to the pond. I managed to accidentally, and then you have to end up kind of scooping it out quite regularly. Um, but this is just another view of the pond at this stage. And then obviously nature fills in all the gaps for you. So bits in between in the rockery, you start getting mosses and things growing in there, and it fills up and it starts to look much more natural and lovely, and creatures just find their way there. You don't have to bring any in; they just somehow kind of magically appear. I ended up continuing my decking around the pond, just giving a sort of a curve around this top edge here. I probably would have left the pond as it was in the last photo, but I had small children at the time that I built this, so I needed to put a fence around it to stop them from just wandering into it, which again gave me great peace of mind. You can see how a lot of the plants have established more now and grown up around the rockery. Okay, my entire reason for posting this on YouTube is to try and persuade more people to build ponds in their garden, just to bring in more wildlife, and just to kind of spread wildlife more as well. Because if everybody had a pond in their garden, it would do so much good for the UK. So one thing I would say though is please, please, please do not add fish like goldfish and koi carp and things to your pond, because obviously they just eat things like newt eggs and frog spawn and that kind of thing, and it's no good for our native amphibians. It's much better to just leave your pond and just have natural things in that occur in the UK. So for example, we get common frogs, and they come here every spring. We get between 50 and 100, and it's just a mass of writhing frogs all spawning in the pond, and the noise from all the croaking is quite spectacular and really fun to watch. Also, every year we get emperor dragonflies emerging from the pond, so they spend a long time as nymphs in the mud at the bottom, and then they crawl up onto the taller plants to molt their skin, and out pops a really big bright blue emperor dragonfly. It's really nice to see. Thanks for watching, and please hit subscribe if you want to see similar videos and anything else that I post in the future.